Okay, so welcome to the first session of the Higher Education History Symposium for Fall 2022. So our first presentation is on History Community Colleges. So looking forward to that. So let's go ahead and get started.
Thank you very much, Professor Edwards. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Happy Monday and happy holidays. I'm proud to be a member of our group, the History of Community Colleges. And this is something that we all chose to be a part of since we each have our respective amount of experience and affinity towards this particular area and this topic. So I will have my colleagues start off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine. I'm currently a graduate student in higher education. I have my bachelor's in science and child and family services. My colleague Cameron has her bachelor's in science and education, and she will be graduating with her master's this December. We also have Heather, who is a part of our group. She has her Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, and she's also a graduate student in higher education. Then we have Mr. John, who has all qualifications and will hopefully be graduating soon as well.
Perfect. So diving right in, we wanted to give you a slight introduction about our topic. Something unique about our expert topic that we each chose to take in a different approach towards is that it is ever encompassing and it is ever growing and changing. So regarding the history of community colleges, history is being made today, right now, and it is always adaptable and carbon and is never the same. So over the years, through economic depressions, world wars, technology developments, and even a more recent experience that we have all had, such as a global pandemic, the community college field and how it has changed and grown has impacted students locally, nationally, and internationally, which we will touch more on later. This is why the history of community college is so important, because of its increased impact and the levels of impact it has on different variety of students, from the small local areas to the national impact to even international and global impact. So that's something we wanted to touch on, just give you the basis of our expert topic. Something else we wanted to give you was a foundation of understanding and a condensed timeline of overarching community college history. So while we won't be diving in to each of the specific moments in the community college timeline, we wanted to give you a brief overview so you had a general understanding. Knowing that in 1901, the first community college was established, and moving to the 70s and 80s and 90s, 2000s to even to the present, we have many different opportunities to see how community colleges have grown and changed, from almost doubling from 2.2 million enrollments in the 70s to the most recent topic on our timeline in 2015, when President Barack Obama unveiled his American College Promise. There has been many times throughout history where community colleges have adapted, overcome, and change their approach to better serve students and increase student success.
So moving into the themes of our research, we have kind of just categorized them in 3 different themes, which will be 1, passion, 2, collaboration, and then 3, fighting the stigma. So more of the passion comes from the instructions. They're passionate about helping their students, also about their jobs and learning about their community colleges, which we'll kind of get into a little bit later with our expert interviews, of knowing that some instructors do choose to stay at a community colleges rather than transferring to university and teaching there, and different things like that. Also collaboration, which will basically we've kind of tied it into just like the vocational trades that have mirrored the needs of like local communities. So anything from like a certificate or, a 2-year associate's degree that helps out moving forward. Another thing that comes from collaboration, which will also be in an article that we reference later on, is the American community colleges. And one of the things that was stated in there was like, American community colleges have been so successful at helping meet the educational needs of local communities that other countries around the world have tried to replicate. their structured degrees in operational fundamentals. So basically everything that is happening in community colleges can be transferred into the work field and other things like that. And also just like having different mentors that'll help different instructors kind of just figure out their degree plans or any type of objectives they want to go over in class. And then the last thing would be fighting the stigma. So a lot of the times community colleges is looked less than. So, you know, it was kind of made for those students who couldn't go straight into a university or were how articles would say it as like they did not have the skills to attend a university or they weren't smart enough or things like that. So that's kind of what we went through our research is that community colleges is still a school. You know, you can get a certificate, vocational training, an associate's degree, and some even offer a bachelor's degree to go along with that as well.
And then the next thing would be our observation insights. So throughout us observing different community colleges and some of the trends that we noticed, one thing that kept resurfacing was that the history and traditions of community colleges were not as prevalent as four-year universities were. One focus that we had on when we were observing was how the history of community colleges impacted local students, national students, and international students. So historically, community colleges focus on serving students within their community. However, with recent enrollment trends, that tends to be changing. So an example of that was Scottsdale Community College in Arizona that we observed. They've kind of adjusted their marketing and recruiting practices to reach more students nationwide. So just not just students within their own community. And then to focus on, international students, John did a lot of extensive research on different international student serving organizations. We found that there were few community colleges that really showed a deliberate effort in serving this type of group. One that we found that did do a great job was Coast Community College District in California. They had a much more extensive international student program and were able to, better be more inclusive for these students. With recent travel bans and COVID restrictions, that's really hindered the international student population even greater. So the vision for the future would be that all community colleges kind of follow suit with Coast Community College and place more of an emphasis on creating an inclusive environment for all types of students.
Right. So we each decided to talk to different experts in different institutions across the United States. So I'm going to start off with my colleague Heather, who spoke with Ms. Charlotte West, who's administrative assistant at McClellan Community College. And what's interesting, in addition to the fact that she works in admissions and recruitment, is that she was able to recall not just when the institution was founded, but even knows things about the traditions of the school, such as the school colors and the alma mater, even the mascot. And these are some of the things that we should keep in mind, that when we go to a community college, we don't always go out looking for those particular types of elements in terms of the identity of the institution. Sometimes we just reserve that for the four-year institutions or the graduate schools, but community colleges do have that as part of their identity. But one of the things that she found that was important is that knowing your institutional history is also knowing the type of image that your college has in the community. So that way they have the vision, or at least a picture, or framing themselves before the community so they can try to bring in and serve as many students as possible. But she also feels that it's important because history can be shared with inquiring prospective students who want to know more about the school versus what they're just seeing on their websites or seeing in the materials that they receive. And also, she's noticed in the time that she's been there that it's been a great place to work, where many people have been very happy, very content to work at McClellan, have ended up retiring. And then what it also does is it gives them a sense of community, sense of job security and stability. But the expert advice that she provided was that it's important to have passion for working in higher ed, but to also serve the students. And that's something that's going to help you last and endure very long in the career and in your area, especially in community colleges. And to also recognize the fact that, yes, opportunities these days are very rare. They can be somewhat competitive, But the key thing is for anyone who wants to work in the field of community college education, who wants to work in higher ed overall, is to be patient and to be prepared until those opportunities present themselves. Next, Cameron interviewed Dr. Krista Blevins-Colmia from Midland College here in Texas as well. She is the mathematics department chair, and she's been there for 6.5 years, but has worked in higher ed for 25 years, working at SMU, Southern Methodist University, where I work right now, Texas Women's University, and Odessa College. And she loves it there. She recalls even things about the school that most people don't even find that's published. She actually knows that prior to the school being quote unquote integrated into the independent community college system in 1972, that the school was actually founded in the late 1960s. So these are certain things that some people just learn as they're working and being immersed into the institution. But she also feels that leadership will have different variables that will require different types of roles and different kinds of needs. And every institution is different: size, structure, personnel, mission, values, history. So those are things that are really important. But she feels that it's important to know the institutional history because it helps instill a sense of pride in the personnel and the faculty and the staff, and also in the students. And it helps unify the community at the institution and also the surrounding community. So that way they can constantly find ways to improve the institution academically, physically, operationally. And another thing that she also wanted to share was the fact that in terms of leadership, the reason why leaders are important is that they help set the climate of the institution on a macro level as well as on a micro level. And she also firmly believes that having a positive attitude and positive relationships are going to directly translate into appreciation and productivity from the faculty, which will also impact the outcomes of learning and the experiences of the students and everyone overall. And Jasmine had reached out to Laura Johns, who's an adjunct instructor at Carl Albert State College in Oklahoma. She's actually an instructor in social and behavioral sciences and actually knew some details about the institution, that the school has been renamed multiple times. It was originally founded as Puto Junior College, which is Puto, Oklahoma, but it was founded back in 1933, prior to the GI Bill. Interestingly enough, the school had been renamed in 1956 as well as in 1973. And in 1973 was named after Carl Albert, who was the highest ranking public servant who ever served in the US Senate. He was actually he was actually the Speaker of the House, so he'd served in Congress, and originally from Oklahoma. So the school was named after him. What was interesting though was that the institution was closed during World War II, but they reopened after World War II, which probably provided a lot of people with GI Bills opportunities for them to learn and go back to school to learn academic as well as vocational skills. But one thing that she mentioned was that knowing the history is helpful to understanding where the school and the institution is headed, and helps to build a vision of knowing where the school originally started. So that should be the foundation for helping everyone better understand their institutions and how they can help improve it. But her expert advice was that community colleges, as an instructor, since she's faculty, offers a great deal of freedom and opportunities to teach from her perspective, and also community colleges provide everyone with a lot of experience and exposure, not just to teach, but also to meet people from different walks of life. And one of the things that Jasmine shared that was really key, and I think that's something that could be very lasting for a lot of us to understand and appreciate, is that you do not grow if you have not failed. Sometimes we have to stumble before we can stand up and move forward. So I think that was a very great inspirational piece of advice. Now, from my end, I was really interested in looking at the international student experience, because a great deal of our conversation regarding community college has been very much about domestic students, which rightfully so, given the climate, the funding, the support, the operations that are involved in terms of creating community colleges and communities that they serve, primarily in the United States and different areas. But I reached out to Mr. Javier Alcala, who is the SEVIS designated school officer for international students, and he's part of Coastline College in Fountain Valley, California. And the school is actually part of the Coast Community College District. But what's interesting about my conversation with him was that he wasn't able to relay anything regarding the history of the institution when he was prompted many times. But what he does know is that he feels that history is a great portion of understanding the stepping stones to understanding the institution and understanding what has worked well in the past and what hasn't. But from our own independent research, found out that the institution was actually founded as early as 1947 with one of the sister institutions, Orange Coast College, which most likely is when a lot of people came in with their GI Bills after World War II. But in addition to Golden West College, those were the only two sites where they actually had on-campus learning. But Coastline College was actually intended to be a distance learning institution under the district. And I'll tell you why this is important, because it's been ingrained in the culture and the history of the institution. So when COVID hit, when the international student population was also subject to the international travel bans, the college already knew what to do and how to accommodate and administer online learning seamlessly, while other institutions were having a great deal of troubles and stumbling upon what to do next. But what he also shared was that a lot of the international students there felt that, as to Jasmine's point earlier, that community colleges were not as good as four-year institutions. They were not enough. They belonged to students who didn't make the cut, which we all know is not the case, which is not true. But he did also mention that for anyone who wants to work with international students in community colleges or beyond, it is important to network. It's important to collaborate. It's important to be part of professional organizations, to work with your departments, to work with faculty and staff, to work with everyone internally as well as others externally, work with consortiums outside of your school, work with consortiums amongst different schools. But also it's really important in the case of us dealing with the COVID pandemic and any other urgent or emergencies that might present themselves, to be aware of what's going on in government, what's going on a global as well as on a local scale, to understand what policy changes are out there, understand and be open to different announcements and figure out ways to make changes. And one thing I do want to share with the group on the next slide is just so you can understand just how many community college students we had in the United States at the start of the Trump administration, but notice how they've gone down in enrollments. It's gone down by 36%. Revenues to the United States from international students from going to community colleges went down by 44%. And also related jobs were slashed by 50%. And just to give you a breakdown of the numbers at Coast Community College District, their numbers went down significantly, went down by about 33%.
Perfect. So with all of the expert research and the information that we've had the opportunity to gather and learn from, we would not be higher education leaders or higher education lifelong learners if we did not apply those resources. One of the most valuable resources that we'd like to share with you today is the value of understanding the history of community colleges, but also experiencing it and applying it. So the best practices that we noticed within the world of history regarding community colleges are 4 points that stood out to us. So student success, evaluation, collaboration, and advocacy and mobilizing and motivating others were recurring themes of best practices within the institutions that we observed and the leaders that we had opportunities to communicate and collaborate with. So focusing on the American Association of Community Colleges standards, these are the standards that we were looking for, and this is what we found. So student success, beginning at Midland Community College, we see a clear example of best practice work implementing higher education and community college history throughout their Legacy Scholars Program. I've done some extensive research regarding this program in previous courses and have had the opportunity to apply it directly to this course. It is a program that is locally funded by 4 foundations. And within this program, it promotes student success not only from high school, but beyond their academic years. So this is done through development of philanthropy and leadership. And students are able to receive funding for 2 full years of community college at Midland College while participating in volunteer activities and other local community connections. This will impact the local students, but will also impact students nationally and internationally who are able to expand those skills and broaden their horizons with these opportunities. And this has been happening since 1986, so definitely has improved student success over the years. Next, we have advocacy and mobilizing and motivating others. This is a very valuable tool, and in the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is one of the most pertinent things that we must forge for when it comes to higher education leadership. So Scottsdale Community College is a very unique situation. They have a high enrollment rate of Native Americans, being that they are built and established on a reservation in Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona. With that, they have a very diverse student population. Not only do they promote other cultures and encourage students to advocate for global cultures and students from all different backgrounds, they consistently promote and mobilize and motivate students to do so through different events. Most recently and most notably, they had a Native American month-long celebration during Native American Heritage Month this past November. And that is just one example of how this school has used their platform to be able to connect students to different cultures and promote the history of different cultures throughout their campus. Next, we have collaboration. Again, visiting McLennan Community College, they have a unique collaboration opportunity. Regarding collaboration in higher education, we often talk about collaborating with other universities or collaborating with students and different professors and such, or maybe even collaborating directly with the community. But their opportunity for collaboration comes actually from a corporation that we might all know and be using during the holiday season, Amazon. So Amazon has partnered with McLennan Community College. Most recently, they released this formally on December 1st, 2022. So pretty close to our presentation time. So what a great way to include this. Like I said, the history of community college is always changing, even today. And within this Amazon Career Choice Program, Amazon employees are provided the opportunity to seek affordable and accessible education. And I just know that this is a platform that will continue to be built upon and could potentially open doors for other schools. Definitely something to be on the lookout for in the future of higher education. And then finally, we have evaluation. So Carl Albert State College that Jasmine touched on previously, when it comes to evaluating a university and implementing the changes and the reflection that an institution has viewed, it is very important that they do that internally. But something that I appreciate about this institution is that they are transparent about their evaluation and personal reflection. Their institutional effectiveness and assessment transparency, you can locate it on their website very easily. Something that I appreciate specifically is their CASC assessment team evaluation. They post it directly on the website and you can view it. But in addition to that, they have a journey and a view of their personal assessment effectiveness timeline per se. And this is something very interesting if you are heavy into higher education assessment and effectiveness. This is a great tool for even you to go use and evaluate your personal institution and apply that directly to your personal programs.
All right, thank you, Cameron. So just to kind of wrap up and give a few conclusion and takeaways from our presentation. So one of the biggest takeaways that we learned was how the history of community colleges impacts all students of all levels. So that includes local students, national and international students. The next thing was how institutions are better equipped to serve students when they're informed about their institution's history. So that's true for faculty and staff, and then also for students on their campuses. I think we find that it's important for them to be familiar with that history as well. And then the last takeaway was just about how professional and personal development are key factors that are associated with the history of community colleges.
Perfect. And then finally, to wrap up, we just wanted to leave each of you in our cohort with additional resources that you can use to broaden your horizons on this subject. So personally, I included the National Institute for Staff and Organizational Development. Being higher education leaders, it's important that we use the history of community colleges and history of all institutions to build that culture in that community. And this is a great resource for enhancing leadership at community and technical colleges specifically.
And then the next one was the American Association of Community Colleges. And this is a great website to get some information on just standards for community colleges. And then they also do some information on advocacy as well.
And then I included the American Community College History, Policies, and Issues. So kind of just what we've already been over in community colleges, what works and what doesn't work, and what we can fix moving forward.
And as a resource, I've included NAFSA, the National Association for Foreign Student Advisors. This organization has been around for a very long time, and they actually are looking to work with a lot of community colleges as well as foreign institutions on articulation agreements to help international students transition into the United States, or to even do ESL programs. They'd like to even know a lot about your institution, and history is definitely embedded in that presentation when you're engaging with them. So either you're interested in it or you have colleagues at your institution that might be interested in, but do recognize that there are a variety of resources that are available to anyone and everyone who wants to learn more about different ways that you can support community colleges and also learn about their histories.
Perfect. So here are our wonderful resources that we have the opportunity to experience. And with that, that concludes our formal presentation, and we'll move into questions and discussion time.
Excellent job. So, first, ask, do you have any questions for this group? I'll say this way: what questions do you have? I know you have questions. What examples do you have?
I'm sorry, Professor, it's kind of hard to hear you with the sound. I apologize. We can't really hear you. Can you repeat that, please? And I apologize for my kids in the back.
No, I was just saying that I was asking what questions did your classmates have for you?
I'm sorry, did you ladies hear that?
I think he just wanted to know what questions maybe some of the classmates might have.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Okay.
I have one question.
Sure.
You guys mentioned that professors are staying at the community colleges. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? On why they choose to stay at the community colleges than to the university level?
So for personal, what I got from my interviewee was that a lot of people that are at the community college, they like to stay at the level because it's more of a mentorship between like different instructors or like faculty, and they kind of have like that close-knit relationship with their students, rather than, you know, if you went to university, I mean, of course, depending on the university, classes may range from anywhere maybe from like 40 students to 200 students. So they kind of just like that, that aspect of being in a close-knit relationship. I know my professor had, or I'm sorry, the interviewee that I had, she was an adjunct professor. So, I mean, they only met once a week, but it was about for 3 hours. So a lot of that time, you know, they started off talks with like how their day was going, how their week was going, how the professor can support the students, but then also it gave like that little extra time after class to like work on the assignments. And if they had questions, she basically talked about it like the first 30 minutes was like, you know, kind of just like a distress moment. And then the next hour and a half was like learning the material, different things like that. And the last 30 minutes of class were basically catching up on like any work that they hadn't done, or if they did need to do those assignments and had questions on it, they can do that in class as well.
And also there's a lot of flexibility for some of those who do work in community college level, because they have more independence to teach a class the way they would like. Granted, they still have to collaborate with their departments and their chairs, et cetera. And there's also a lot who also work at other institutions nearby. So they give them the flexibility of like, hey, if I'm working at a four-year institution, I can also help connect and work with students on the community college level. Or if I have other interests in other areas, but I still want to be part of this institution, still be part of this community college and serving the students. There are a lot of people who are like that. I've done it myself before as well, even after I moved on to work in another institution to help students in my own way. And everyone has different motivations for wanting to do that. You know, everyone has different reasons and different availability. And that's another component of it. Some people feel that flexibility gives them a lot of freedom. Others who feel like, hey, you know, I can be a full-time instructor or employee, or I can do it on a part-time basis, or I can do it once here or there. And it varies from place to place and for every individual.
Perfect. Well said. Thank you.
add to that a little bit in terms of kind of being a community college instructor. A lot also has to do with the mission, and there's not a right or wrong answer to this, but you know, the community college mission and the university mission are a little different in terms of who they serve. As you all know, any of this is going to be help stay in the community when it's classes. And the university may go on to other areas where the need for job opportunities. So some people like being a part of that mission and helping people stay in the community and get that first good job or lower paying job to a higher paying job. So I think that is the truth of it. I'd like to ask you all, each of you, what's something that you'll take away from this process in terms of investigating your expert area, what you've learned about maybe yourself in the process, what you've learned about your strategies that will help you as a higher education leader.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start because this kind of ties into the previous question as well. I think two defining words that define not only my perception of history of community colleges, but also my experience diving into this expert topic are adaptability and innovation. I think as higher education leaders, both in community colleges or wherever you find yourself, adaptability is not only necessary, but is the most important tool that you can have as a leader. And seeing how schools and students and staff and faculty and the nation has adapted throughout history in the community college eras, as well as how we have had to adapt throughout this project for different things. That's definitely something that I will take with me as I walk across the stage on Friday. And then lastly, innovation, just not being afraid to innovate and make changes that increase opportunities for student success, but also increase opportunities for personal growth so that you can continue to influence others in new and exciting and innovative ways. And I think that was definitely shown throughout this project as well, in collaboration with these peers and their different experience levels and how we connected and how we each took a different perspective and unique, innovative perspective and pulled them all together and saw how it impacted the expert topic as a whole.
Yeah, I also agree with what Cameron said, and kind of to piggyback off of her point, I was going to say innovation as well, and then also resiliency. It seems like that community colleges are historically resilient to, go to evolve with any changes or, difficult times that may come their way. And then I also think another point is that trend that we kept coming back to of that stigma of how community colleges are sometimes viewed as an inferior, educational experience. Like John had mentioned, we all know that that's not true. And I think that it's important to kind of take that and help change that perspective.
I also want to share a couple of things. I'll make this real fast because I know we want to get to the next group. So the first thing I want to share was that, yes, community colleges are equally as valuable as four-year and graduate institutions because of the fact that, yes, each institution has its respective mission and services, but they really are there to serve the community, not just traditional students. They serve traditional and non-traditional students. They serve anyone who from all walks of life who's interested in either doing something that's for credit or non for credit, for a degree purpose or non-degree purposes. It's all encompassing, right? And it's also very affordable. It's very accessible for those who want to participate and be a part of that community and learn from them. The other thing I wanted to share was that I've noticed a certain trend that's been happening, though, and it goes back to the stigma. A lot of community colleges are starting to offer bachelor's degrees. And I think we've all been noticing that across the board, not just, some of us are here in Texas, but it's been happening nationwide. And some of them are starting to drop the term community, which is, I think that's, and I don't know if it's part of the marketing, part of the branding, or rebranding themselves, but if you take a look, there's some schools that have community in their names and others that don't, which is interesting because I think they're trying to reframe what it is, but I think it can either help, depending on your perspective, it can either help or it can hinder, because community is a very important word. It's a very strong word. It's about bringing people together. And that's what I think a lot of us need to, not, whether we're leaders now in the era or leaders of tomorrow, we need to think about how do we want to engage others and have them think about that from a different perspective. But the last thing I wanted to really share was that I already earned a graduate degree. I have 2 graduate degrees under my belt already. I actually went to a community college, even with a master's, to earn a certificate in a field that I had no real background in, because I just wanted to learn. Right. I had $50 per credit, boom, put the money down. I took the class and I enjoyed it. And believe it or not, there were certain classes there that were more challenging than some of the, graduate courses I've taken, not this one, of course, but, but, there are different levels of different opportunities, I should say. They're just different opportunities for you to learn different things. I don't think there's anything wrong or any shame in it. I think it's important and it's valuable no matter who you are or what you've accomplished. So the stigma needs to go out the window, and we just need to keep supporting them and believing in them.
Yeah, I definitely think kind of piggybacking off of all of y'all, my group members, yeah, the stigma has definitely been something that I've even seen within like just being back home, because I used to live in a different city, and coming back home, like going back to the high school I graduated from, and like speaking with like the students that go there, and they're like, I don't want to go to community college, like, I want to go to this school. And I'm like, okay, well, let's build our way up to that. And I think that's kind of just something that like I've even had to talk to my brother with, because he was in the military, and he's like, he's gone on 4 different tours. So he's like, I just want to go to school. I just want to get a degree. And I'm like, okay, like, let's start small. Like if you have taken that time away from schooling, not going straight from high school to college, definitely, I think people, say, oh, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back. And definitely that is like, you are fighting the stigma with that. Like, I'm going to go back now. And community college is kind of just that stepping stone for a lot of people to get into a university they want to, or different things like that, being that sister school, or like Cameron had talked about how Amazon is now helping, those students like get into that work field. So that's definitely something I would take away and kind of just like, talk about with the students from the high school that I did graduate from, and help them, build that encouragement for them of like, you can do it, you will do it, and you will get to that point that you want to be at someday.
And it is important to remember there are a lot of community colleges that are collaborating with high schools on early college programs that are helping students through pathways for dual credit attainment, so they're able to get college credit while they're in high school, get their high school diploma and an associate's degree, or if they don't get the associate, they can at least get some college credit to work towards going to a 2-year or 4-year institution. So there's a lot of value. They're doing a lot of partnerships with different cities, with different businesses, both regionally as well as statewide, or even nationally or globally. So there is a lot of opportunity there that already exists, that I think we just need to open our eyes to the fact that they're doing more than most people might assume.
My last question, I know we got to take time, this is a history class. How have community colleges ever changed or not changed? And where do you see community colleges within that historical context?
Can you ask that again, Professor, or maybe put it in the chat by chance?
So I'm gonna go and talk about this one basically from the webinar that I went after, or that I looked through from YouTube. So a lot of it, was more like, conversation discussion type of thing. And what they were saying was that in the past, the history of community college mostly had, as they do still now have a free range of what they would like to teach, or, how they would teach it. They're now kind of moving in the direction of teaching the same topics, but still being able to, I guess, um, like, so they're able to teach the topics, but now it used to be whatever you kind of wanted to teach of like what the subject that you were talking about. So like if you were talking about science, you can go based off of different areas of science. Now they're moving into like they want all areas of science, and things like that. So like there's kind of more, it's still a free range in a sense of like, what the way you present the teaching, but more in a sense it is now you have to teach this topic. It's kind of, just delivering the message can be different.
I recall that the earliest versions of community college were more like normal schools. So if you were trained to become an educator, trained to become a teacher, that's where you went. That's what you did at that time, especially given the fact that, education wasn't accessible to everyone, especially on socioeconomic strata, depending on where you were. If you were on the elite side, you tended to go to quote unquote prestigious institutions, but if you were on the lower end of socioeconomic strata, you probably could go to a community college. That is, if you had the education and the opportunity. But I do recall also that, when it came down to World War II, having the GI Bill, it just made it more accessible, and they started to proliferate during that particular time. So definitely the different types of areas where students can study, like having academic as well as vocational areas to study, that definitely transformed what people probably considered community colleges to be at that particular time. And it's also something that when we look at them today, they've transformed. Like they haven't stayed the same. They're not static. They've been dynamic over time. And as I mentioned before, we're looking at community colleges that are serving, or say awarding rather, bachelor's degree programs. They are helping people tie what they're studying to professional opportunities. It's closely embedded with the workforce earlier. So their outlets or the pathways, and they're creating pathways to careers as well as pathways to further their academic interests to a four-year institution and graduate institution. So, and as I mentioned before, they're also partnering more with high schools. So they're becoming more and more dynamic, but they're kind of changing with the times, which is why I stated earlier, they're dynamic. They're not static. They haven't stayed working and using the same model. And every one of these community colleges are also operating differently because it's also reflective, not just of the times, but also the space and the places where they are. So if there are certain job opportunities or needs in a particular region or area, that's what that particular community college may be specializing in, or in those areas, or offering it. And they obviously have to change with the times, change with the technology, change with the demographics, the diversity of the students that are coming in their particular regions, but also nationwide, just seeing how our country has changed ever since higher education was first born here in the United States, coming over from Europe to the United States and then evolving over time. And this is where we are now.
For our first session of our great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.